Good evening, everybody, and welcome. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Carrie Gallagher, and I have the privilege of serving as the education director for ConnectSafely. I'm also a school administrator and teacher in Massachusetts, and I'm lucky enough to be the parent of two teenage girls. We're really grateful to be with you here tonight, and I'm excited to introduce our PTA partnership representative who's with us today. I'll let you introduce yourself, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. Hopefully that's not too confusing for everybody that's listening to Carrie's. But hello and welcome to everyone. I'm really excited to be part of this important conversation tonight. I'm National PTA's PTA Connected Ambassador. I'm a mom to three girls, ages 14, 11, and 9. And as a parent, dedicated child advocate, vice chair on the school board in my district, and I work in the social media communications field. I really care deeply about how our children and young people are interacting with technology, making sure that they're safe and responsible. And then I know that helping kids navigate this world is really daunting because, like many adults, like for me, I didn't grow up with technology. I always feel like I'm catching up, but we're really committed to connecting families with tools and research to support them as they go through this journey together. We're really looking forward to having proactive and open ongoing conversations with families because we're all part of that village that helps keep kids safe and build good digital habits. And also thanks through our PTA Connected initiative, we provide turnkey education and programming for PTA leaders to use locally to educate themselves about digital safety, citizenship, well-being, readiness, and also access within school communities, homes, and families, which is so important.
Great, awesome. Thanks for joining me tonight, Carrie. We wanted to make sure that you knew you logged on today to hear our webinar called No Room for Doom, helping your family thrive in this digital age. Throughout the webinar, you'll have the opportunity to share your questions with us, and we'll have time set aside. We have a good chunk of time allotted for us to answer your questions. You could do that by tapping the Q&A feature if you've logged in via Zoom, or you can type your comments, type in your questions in the comments on Facebook if that's where you're joining us tonight. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first segment. We'll have three segments tonight. And the first segment is based on the topic of media literacy and critical thinking. So with that, we thought we were brainstorming together in the weeks leading up to this webinar, Carrie and myself and our teams from ConnectSafely and National PTA. And we were thinking about this, we were thinking about our own children's, and in my case, my students' experiences online when it comes to how media literacy connects to them. And I think with adults, we think about media literacy in terms of like politics and advertising, but with kids, they're really influenced by the social media presence of people they admire, like athletes or musicians or social media influencers. And if we've been taught anything over the last couple of years, it's that all of those people, even though they have this very curated image on social media, they make mistakes because they're human, just like us. So the question we wanted to have our audience consider tonight is, what if a famous musician or a famous athlete or famous actor publishes something that's offensive or hurtful, makes a mistake and says something that's racially insensitive or insensitive to a specific group based on, socioeconomic status or any other identity that they have? How do we talk to our kids about that? So as you consider that, I wanted to share some of my own ideas and some of the ideas that we have at ConnectSafely. We really think that it's important to be proactive, and that as you see your children or adolescents admiring these people who have garnered great fame because of their accomplishments or their talents or simply their hard work, it's important to remind them that they're humans. Ask them questions about, what do you think they feel at the end of a really hard day for a competition? What does it feel like for them to be tired? When they experience burnout, what do you think that's like for them? Do you think they ever say things that they regret? Do you think that they've worked as hard at learning to apologize as they have worked to become so recognized or to have so many achievements in their field? And as you ask those questions, you'll start to encourage your children to see them as humans. When it comes down to it, when those people that they admire make those mistakes online, we want to then encourage our children to wait and watch and listen. Do they own those mistakes? Do they apologize for those mistakes publicly? When they do, how is that apology? Is it a genuine apology with authentic regret? And then process that apology with your children and ask them what they think. How does it make them feel? How do you think it might make the targeted group feel, or the affected group? So I think the important thing here is really to just have proactive conversations about the life behind the scenes, right, of those famous people they follow, and then have reactive processing conversations with your children. Carrie, I know that you had some follow-up questions about this idea of media literacy and critical thinking.
Thank you for that overview. And I'll say that we definitely all are human. And I think what oftentimes parents feel is that how do I put an adult situation into terms that my child can understand? And I appreciated what you said, that bringing it to their terms, I think is really important. So a question that I have that I'd love to talk about is, what do I do if it becomes apparent that my child is spending a bulk of their time or screen time watching one particular creator or influencer on either YouTube, TikTok, or any other platform?
Yeah, great question. I don't know if you've experienced this, Carrie, with your own children at home, but I definitely see, especially my younger teen, go in cycles of really following a certain influencer and watching their video, kind of like almost binge watching, right? Their videos, they get kind of hooked on them, and then they move to another influencer. So I think that this is a pretty common experience. Sometimes it's somebody who's a gamer, right? But sometimes it's somebody who is really great at makeup. Sometimes it's somebody who demonstrates really exceptional skills at the sport that my daughter's passionate about. So she kind of like topic hops too with these influencers. I think to have a really positive conversation is really important. Like, oh, why do you love watching those videos? What is it about the way those videos are created that's so engaging? You know, what does it make you think about? Have you ever wanted to try out some of the things that they do? So asking questions that are very open-ended and that demonstrate curiosity, really get your child to open up about what they're thinking. I think what we want to avoid is saying things like, I don't know why you spend all your time watching that. That's a waste of your time, because that's not inviting that open-ended positive conversation with your child, so that when that influencer makes a mistake, you already have a nice solid foundation to base that conversation on.
I love that. And I like to sometimes follow and watch along with some of the videos, maybe not together with my teen or with my children, but knowing that I follow the same people and maybe can bring up a video that we saw together to kind of spark that conversation. I think that's something that can help too. So thank you. I appreciate that. Another question I have. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, that's a great tip. That's actually something that just happened. I was in the car with one of my girls, and she was like, Mom, did you see that so-and-so posted this? And I was like, yes, I did, because I also follow who I know she follows. So exactly right. Spot on. You had another question.
And it's nice when you don't get surprised by a question for once, right? Where you can be like, I do know, I can reference that. Another question I have is, like, when my child or teen sees a news story or a video online, or maybe even hears it from a friend, I know that their sphere of their social group tends to be very tight and small in the schools that they're in. So even if a friend sends it to them, but they're very upset about it, they didn't like what they saw, it was disturbing, it created a really strong reaction. When should I get involved? What should I say to help to navigate that situation?
I think the first thing to do, in my experience, is to help them name and own their feelings first. How do you feel? Do you feel angry? Do you feel sad? Do you feel worried? Do you feel like anxious, right? Like, and why do you think you're feeling that way? And is there something that I can do to help you with those feelings? So first is to just acknowledge the feelings, and that the feelings are okay and are normal. Once the feelings have run their course, then we can talk about the topic, right, of what they saw and how maybe that has helped influence those feelings. But it's really important to not try to say instantly, like, it's okay, and try to fix it for them in that moment. It's first important to help them process those feelings. A really big part of media literacy is acknowledging that media does have an influence on our emotions, and helping our children recognize their emotions is a key part of that. So this is already so great, Carrie. I'm excited to move on to our next topic. Our next topic is body image and the pressure to be perfect. And I find this is like spot on in terms of things that I worry about with the children that I serve, both in my home and in my school. In particular, I think one of the big things I hear a lot of parents like on the sidelines of the soccer fields and the teachers when I'm running workshops at school talk about is like social media is just a highlight reel. That's not real life. I don't know why people spend so much time, right, on social media. My thing is that it's okay for social media to be a highlight reel, right? Like, shouldn't all of us feel empowered to share the good things in our lives, to celebrate those good things with the people that we know or the people that we're connected to because they're family or friends on social media? Those are the people we want to share our lives with. And social media is just another way that we do that. The danger, though, is when you think that the highlight reel tells the whole story, because it really doesn't. We have days when we're sick. We have days where, the soccer game wasn't a win. Maybe it was a loss, right? And I think one thing that we can do is model the ups and downs of real life in our own social media sharing with our children. Like, for instance, they're coming off the soccer field and like, wow, you guys, like, that was a really tough loss, but I saw how hard you worked and I'm really proud of that hard work. And I'd like to share with other people how proud I am of your hard work in the face of adversity. Is it okay if I share that? Right? I think, and anytime we share anything about our children on our own social media feeds, we should ask their permission and get their blessing anyway. And I know a lot of families choose not to share about their children at all, and I totally respect that decision as well. But I think modeling that, things don't have to be perfectly crafted in order for them to be shared and celebrated and honored is okay. I even, I don't know if you've ever done this, Carrie, but like my social media is definitely a highlight reel of my life. But I've purposely on like my Instagram story or my Facebook story and other places have like, when I'm sick, I've like taken selfies and been like, homesick, not every day is a victory, and like put that up there just to like keep it real with my friends and make sure that everybody knows that I am keeping it real. So I think that modeling is really important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of my highlight reels are like organizational things, like clean talk, #clean talk. But I certainly know that not every corner of my house is perfectly organized and clean. So I think it's good to throw in there that I know that adults out there are struggling with that too, where you see those perfectly curated homes or whatever, and it's hard not to compare. So it kind of leads me to a question of, how can I show my kids that influencers they follow are really only showing a curated version of their lives, but without being incredibly negative or without making social media out to be the enemy? How can I have that conversation?
So one of the things that I did recently, Carrie, on my own is I Googled why I'm no longer an influencer or why I stopped being an influencer. I threw that into Google and I got all these awesome articles and like video shorts from former influencers telling their story about why they left doing that. And it was a great opportunity for me to see people really publishing themselves, keeping it real and talking about how much pressure it is to be an influencer, how much pressure it is to look perfect every time you're on camera, how they felt like every time they were on camera, after a while, they weren't really being themselves. They were being the seller of a product, because in order to be an influencer, you have to have sponsors and you're selling, right, what it is that the sponsors are paying you to sell. And once you as a parent have seen a couple of those, you can pick and choose some that you think are a good fit for your child and show that to them so that they understand what goes on behind the scenes of these influencers' lives and how it isn't really perfect. It's curated because it's their business, it's their job. Even the way they set up their homes so that that's the backdrop of what they're showing is very much curated, and there's probably parts of their homes that they don't show. Like, everybody's laundry room is a mess. It doesn't matter how organized you are, right? So I think that's a great way that's something I recently discovered that I thought I was like, this is such a good tip.
I love that a lot because I think if anybody watching, if your teens are like my teens, it's that I can say something, and it holds meaning, of course, but seeing it from actual influencers that are out there, I do think it's important for kids to see it from people that are doing that rather than just, oh, okay, mom, sure. I think that there's something that resonates when it's someone who's done it before, and I think it means it holds a little more weight with them. So I appreciate that. And then another question, kind of on the same topic, is what about all the really edited or filtered images and posts my children are seeing online? Should I encourage my kids not to edit and filter their posts? And how do you do that without limiting creativity? Because in a lot of ways, that's a creative outlet. I don't want to, take that away from them, but how much is too much, and where do you gauge that?
Yeah, this is such a good question because I think there are some filters and editing tools that are problematic because they're designed to make a normal body look like an idealized body. And unfortunately, especially for boys who are looking to be athletic or muscular, and for girls who are looking to meet this like weird female ideal that like nobody looks like, those filters are designed to really change their faces and their bodies to look that way. On the other hand, there are filters that are really fun that make you kind of look cartoony, or who add funky colors, or who make your eyes look giant, and it's fun. So I think you have to start working with your kids, playing with the filters alongside them. Like you mentioned, following the same influencers they follow, play with the filters with them and talk about the motivation of the person who created this filter. What were they trying to make people feel? What were they trying to do? And when you choose a filter or an editing tool, what's your motivation for doing it? Is it creativity and artistry? Or is it because you're not having a good body image day? Which, by the way, all of us have like not good body image day, no matter how much body image work we've done, no matter how mature we are. And I think processing all of that every single day with your kids, just like every single day, you're like, what did you have today that was healthy, right? I need you to go to bed because you have a big day tomorrow. You need to get enough sleep. As parents, we're not shy about those conversations. Let's not be shy about digital filtering technology, about body image talk. Let's make that a part of our everyday parenting.
And admitting sometimes that sometimes I would like to use a filter on my photos. I understand where that's coming from, and talking through that. Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's move to our third and final topic, and then we're going to get to the questions from the audience, which I'm really excited to see. So this next one is picking on peers, which I think in normal parent conversation, and a lot of times even in school conversations with teachers, it really boils down to this like word bullying or cyberbullying that we're just really comfortable with, which I'm thrilled that it's become part of the modern American lexicon. But I feel like what people think of when they think of bullying is like the mean kid on the playground, except just digitized, saying mean things about people online. And sometimes that can be like taking a picture of somebody and making it into a meme that's really mean. Sometimes it's literally commenting mean things under something they've posted online in the comment feed. But the part of this picking on peers that I really wanted to point out, because I feel like those are like really clear issues that can be addressed really directly with kids. They're not easy. They're just more directly addressed. But the type of picking on peers that I wanted to talk about was exclusion. So this, in the era of group chats kind of being the way that kids interact digitally, even more so than on social media now. They use group chats in Snapchat, they use group chats in other apps, on iMessage, on iPhones, they use group chats in lots of other places. Children will sometimes have a group chat where there's everybody, and then make a separate group chat where there's one person that they've purposely left out to have a side conversation, right? Or they'll post on their social media about them going off and doing something where this like fifth or sixth person wasn't invited. Sometimes that invitation is really not on purpose, and it's a literal adolescent lack of awareness. They don't see outside of themselves because of just the age of development socially where they are. And sometimes it's intentional, and it's mean, and it's hard for the child who's excluded. So two things that are really important here is, number one, these moments of exclusion socially never go away. No matter how old you are, no matter how long you've been friends with a group of friends, people move, people's schedules shift, people's work and family lives shift. Sometimes things change season to season. I know in Carrie and I live in the Northeast, and my family's life is more busy in the winter because we're skiers than it is in other times of the year. And that's really different from some of the families that we're connected with. And as a result, there's moments where even I feel excluded from some of the things my friends do because I'm not around. And so they like, don't invite me in the winter. They think they're just being kind because they don't want me to have to say no. But sometimes it feels like, oh, it would be nice to be thought of, right? So I think it's really important to be honest with our kids about that never goes away. And here are things that I do, right? I may say, hey, it looks like you had fun. I wish you'd let me know you were going. I was actually free that night. Like, even though I know I say no a lot, if you could just reach out and invite me in the future, that would be amazing. I think that kind of modeling and also that kind of vulnerability that you share with your children is going to help them build their skills. Will they be able to do that right away when they're 12 or 13? Absolutely not, right? It will take time to build up the courage and the confidence, but the more we can model it over time, the more we can help them.
Well, and I really appreciate what you said about at the beginning, that I do think it's a natural thing for parents or guardians to try to pull from experience of when they were adolescents. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to think of bullying as very direct, where I loved what you said about how sometimes it's not direct and it's not always intentional, but it still happens. And what do we do with that? And I think that's something that a lot of parents are still catching up on, is how do you navigate bullying in a way that's not, physical or not directly face to face, because it's not necessarily something we grew up with. I certainly didn't. So it's very new territory. And so it brings me up a question of, what if in a group text goes wrong, like there's negative speak, or there's something that makes your child uncomfortable with what's being said, or maybe with the pressure of having to keep up with so many conversations. The phone is constantly buzzing. They're trying to be in sports, do homework, have family time, and they feel like if they don't respond, the fear of missing out, or that they'll be left out in the future, or if I say I'm uncomfortable with something, they're going to take me off of group chat. It's a little different than when I grew up. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on those types of scenarios.
Oh, those are not easy ones, Carrie. Those are tough. Yeah. So I think when something goes sideways in a group chat and you're not comfortable with the tone people are taking or the words that they're using, maybe they're talking about somebody else, or maybe they're saying something that is like insensitive to a certain group, like based on race or religion or beliefs or something like that. One thing that I've advised my own children is think about who in the group chat do you trust the most, right? Text that person on the side, just that one person. Don't make a whole other group chat, right? And just be like, hey, I'm not comfortable with what's happening here. Like, how do you feel about this? Or like pop them up on FaceTime, right? Like, what do you think about this? This doesn't feel right, right? And talk to that person, that one person in the group chat who you think you can trust the most, and come up with a plan together about what you're going to do. And if as a pair of children or adolescents, you're having trouble, then just know, like, I'll always be here for you to help you come up with a plan. And this is key, as the adult, I promise not to try to swoop in and fix it for you. I promise to let you be the one to take the action to do this together with your friend. I think that's key. And the pressure to keep up with those group texts, honestly, if the group text is buzzing that fast, no one's going to notice that you didn't add to it. So if they really need to sleep, just teach them how to mute notifications temporarily on those group texts, and then they can unmute them when they're ready. So
those are really practical responses. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then another question is about being left on read or left on open. Sometimes people read a message or my message, but then don't respond for whatever reason. And as an adult, I fully understand they're probably working or they're busy, and it's okay. But when it happens to kids, it really tends to make them feel like they're being left out, or others might not like what they said, or that they're not important enough to respond. So how can I help my kids navigate those types of situations?
Yeah, that one's really tough. That was so tough. Do you remember, Carrie, like having those burning emotions of like worry when you were in middle school? I remember how it felt. It
Yes.
felt like a little ball of fire in my chest. Like I was so worried. Um, I think it's important to like brainstorm with them. Like, what do you think could potentially be happening? Like, could they be at dinner with their family? Could they actually be in the middle of a fight with their brother or sister, right? Could they be, what sports do they play? Could they be at practice? Like, could it be that somebody else picked up their phone and saw it? Like, does their parents have their passcode and it wasn't actually them? How could you reach out to them to find out if they saw it without causing more anxiety for you, and just brainstorm solutions? Just like the last answer, the most important thing is to brainstorm the reasons and the solutions, but not try to swoop in and fix it. Let them decide. And just know that I know it feels uncomfortable as a parent when your kid is having uncomfortable feelings, but allowing them to take their own time to work through it is really key to developing emotional intelligence and getting them ready for adulthood. So we need to be able to be on the ride with them as it happens. I really want to get to our audience questions, don't you? I'm excited.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. So I'm getting our first audience question here. It says, I know this is from Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, for logging in and asking these questions. I know all teens are different. However, do you have a suggestion for how much social media they should be able to have per day? And are itinerant videos considered social media? Carrie, I don't know what itinerant videos are. Do you, Carrie? Neill?
I'm wondering if it means like if when you're just sitting and intaking information versus like creating. I'm guessing. I can't get to my Google fast enough.
Do you know that it may actually just be internet videos and it just might be like mistyped?
Oh, maybe.
So yeah, maybe. Sorry for Carrie and I trying to figure this out live in front of you all. But so how much should they have per day? So it's so funny because the American Academy of Pediatrics for years, do you remember, Carrie, it used to be like, there's a magic number of hours of screen time that kids can have that make you like a quote unquote good parent. And then like a couple of years ago, they were like, we were wrong. There's no magic hours. Like, here's the 12 principles of like how to get to know that every kid is unique. And I think to me, like that's the key to this, right? That it isn't a magic number of hours. It depends on your children. So for me, my children are very active in sports. They also are active in some volunteer work. But then every now and then, like we had our really deep freeze that just happened here in the Northeast and everything shut down for like 36 hours because it got to like 20 below zero. Another of our colleagues who's on this call doing some work in the background, he lives in Texas where they had that deep freeze that I'm sure many of our colleagues have heard about, where they were like iced in. And when our kids have a whole bunch of screen time on those days, like it's okay, right? Because what are we all doing on those days? As long as it's balanced with an overall healthy lifestyle of being with friends, engaging in lots of activities, moving their bodies, using their minds, all of those things. Do you have anything to add to that answer, Carrie? What do you think?
Well, I would say that especially National PTA and our partnerships with our sponsors, I think we all agree that you know your children best, the children in your household. And so none of us are going to say, here's the exact right X number, not because we don't want to give you an answer that you're comfortable with, but because you really, truly should have confidence that you know what's best for in your household and for your child. And so if you're seeing crazy, sudden, I shouldn't use that word, I hate using that word crazy, but very sudden, rapid change in personality or how they're interacting with you, not just normal teen, hormonal changes, but truly deep changes in their personality. Those are types of things that I would say are indicators of maybe taking a look at some of their media usage. But in my house, for example, a lot of it is, how they're spending their time online. And I saw that you added in, Kelly, that you meant TikTok videos versus what they're watching online as well. And I think both are equally important. A lot of kids really, really love using technology as a way to be a creative outlet or to find out DIY tools or hacks, and they're actively learning and participating with those videos. And I think that making that distinction in your household is important. And like the other Carrie said, day to day, what's going on, I think we all can agree. Sometimes I like to veg out and just scroll through my feed. And other times, if I'm not getting my work done, if I'm not getting people where they need to be, and if I'm not living up to my responsibilities because I'm so glued to my phone, that's a key indicator as well. So having that positive conversation with your kids about what are they comfortable with, what are you comfortable with, I bet you'd find a pretty good medium place where you can kind of find out what's best for your household.
Yeah, I love that approach. I do think, and not only do you know your kids best, but every child that you have is different and can handle different amounts of time depending on, what's right for them at that moment in their life. So what's right for my 14-year-old right now is not the same as what's right for my 11-year-old right now. And what's right for my 11-year-old when she's 14 won't be the same as what's right for my 14-year-old right now. They're all individuals and they deserve to each have those different conversations with you periodically, just like you suggested. So our next question is from Maritza. She said, how do we talk to our kids about having a quote unquote healthy stranger danger, since we can't disable the chat feature in some of their online games? And what's an age appropriate way to talk about them, about like healthy stranger danger without scaring them? This is a great question. And I think it's one that a lot of parents worry about because I think we know that there are adults who hang out online playing games that are specifically designed for kids. And that's worrisome. That's a little scary, right? So I think my key is, I think it was very easy earlier on for us to say, like, only talk online to people you know. But that's not the way online gaming works anymore. I know my own children prefer to play online games with people that they already know, but there is a little bit of adventure, right, that comes with logging on and maybe talking to someone who has a different player name than you've ever met, or a different avatar, and they're fun and they're funny. I think one thing that we can do is make sure that we let them know that if somebody ever says something that makes them feel uncomfortable, or if somebody ever says something that suggests that they aren't allowed to tell about what has happened in the game, or aren't allowed to tell about the content of a conversation, they should reach out to us. Now, the way we can build trust so that they're willing to reach out to us is that we don't react emotionally or with anger or with panic when they do come to us and tell us that happened. Instead, we react with those curious questions, just like we asked earlier about, like, why do you like following that influencer? What is it about their videos that's so entertaining? Like, when you started talking, what was it like? Tell me a little bit more about how the conversation went, right? And just know that I'm here for you and we're going to figure this out together. And then get the information that you can get from them. Come up with a plan so that next time they play the game, they know what to do if and when something like that happens. Maybe next time you kind of sit with them when they play the game so that they're not as worried. And if you need to report that user to the game, use the reporting feature. It's really important that we teach them how to feel empowered and use the tools that are available. But really helping them calibrate that inner barometer for what's okay and what's not okay by having those proactive conversations is important.
And I will just add that it is a bit of a plug, but if you go to pta.org/connected, there's a tool called the Smart Talk, and it's a free online tool. But more importantly, what it does is it gives you the words as the adult, the words to start the conversation. So when I used the tool, I found out that when I said something like unsafe, I don't think that my daughters at the ages that they were at understood what unsafe meant to me. And I didn't understand what unsafe or dangerous meant to them. And all their answers were different. And I learned so much just from listening, but I didn't have the tools in the toolbox to ask those questions without sounding like a, SVU, like, you know what I mean, episode. And I didn't want to overexpose them, but I just needed the words. And that tool, step by step, it's broken down by age and by a lot of different other categories. And at the end of it, it forces a lot of conversations, gives me tools on how to talk to them about it. And at the end of it, we have a contract that we really agreed to, from everything from screen time to what apps they can use. And I also signed one that, what do I commit to? No cell phone at the table, even if it's work. Those are things that I think that they appreciated, because study after study shows that teens want to know where the boundaries are. They might not like them, but they want to know where they are, the line in the sand, so that they know where they can't cross. And I think that as being as clear as possible with what you define as unsafe is so important. And that tool can really help those conversations. It gives you the words on what to say, so you don't have to think of them yourself. Sometimes we need that.
Yeah. And I think two things I want to add to what you said. I think contracts work really well for some families, but it's important that those contracts are like revised and discussed often,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
use the contract, but then like literally every couple of weeks, check in on how's this going, right? And know when it's time to let the contract go. Sometimes they age out of the contract age too.
Yes,
so
kids change so quickly.
they do. Oh my gosh, especially one of my children has grown 4 shoe sizes in like 4 months, and the only thing that fits her right now is her Crocs. So they grow in lots of ways, literally and figuratively. So next question from Janelle: how do you balance encouraging tech abilities and also controlling hacking and get around computer limits? So as somebody who works in a school, this is like all the time. We want our students at my school to be creative and come up with creative technological solutions to problems and creative ways to express their learning and share their ideas with the world. But we also have privacy and safety guidelines that we're legally obligated to keep in place at the school, because our students are under 18, under 16, under 13 at various grade levels, and there's sort of different rules that need to be in place. So as a parent, as somebody who helps run a school and helps keep track of those rules, they're complicated for a school, but for parents, like there's nobody there to help you with that at home. I think it's really important that you do encourage that creativity. If they are starting to, I have a nephew who's like actually building computers, and and I think some of the hacking stuff, there's like white hat hacking, there's like hacking for good. I think it's important to reach out to the school, first of all, and ask if they're learning about this from the school and what they've learned from their teachers about those things, so that you have a sense. I think there's an opportunity there for a homeschool partnership, especially with a student who is especially interested and talented in this area, especially if there's some computer science resources there. But then additionally, I think it's important to check out some of the resources that are available. Like Carrie mentioned, resources from PTA, from ConnectSafely. There are all kinds of parent guides available on cybersecurity and safety and privacy to help educate you on some of the guidelines around sort of the technical aspects of privacy and what questions to ask your children. I think when they become particularly talented at this, it can feel like they know more than you. But what I always tell parents in the parent programs that I run at my school, and the parents who, like I said, I kind of see on the sidelines of the soccer field, is that they may know more about that particular technical thing, right? But you know more about life and guidelines and structures and guardrails. And like Carrie mentioned earlier, study after study shows us that kids are going to push boundaries, but they want the boundaries. And the reason they test the boundaries is because they're testing that they can trust you to hold the boundaries. So holding those boundaries is really important, but being willing to make change over time as they grow and mature is also important. But I encourage you, if you're struggling with finding that balance, reach out to the experts who are available to you through computer science departments at your school, or other local organizations that maybe have workshops for kids who are into that, to see if they can help you figure out, where the good guidelines can be and how you can help your child really be creative, but also stay as safe as possible. All right, another question. I want to tell my 10-year-old daughter about the danger of sending naked photos, but I don't know how to start the conversation. Ooh, good question. I'm so glad somebody asked this one. I, believe it or not, have run a workshop in my school just for boys in 10th grade on sexting. So I have some experience talking about naked and nude photos in a room full of adolescents, and it can be a little bit uncomfortable. But I think the most important thing is to be very clear and use very clear terminology that you agree upon. So Carrie, like you mentioned, not understanding the difference, what unsafe means. First, start with the vocabulary. Like if you're going to talk about not sharing private parts, with your daughter, point to what the private parts are and discuss that very clearly. And then I think it's important to talk about why don't we, when we take family pictures, include those parts of our body in those family pictures, right? Why aren't those parts of our body on the wall in the pictures that we display? And start having ask her those questions and see what she says. And then you can cue your answers from there and then talk about why, therefore, we're not going to take those pictures because we're not going to have them on our devices for a couple of reasons. Number one, that we don't, those are not things that we share on the wall, right? So those are not things that we're going to share online either. And that way we're going to prevent any potential mistakes, because I've hit the wrong button on my phone, and I'm sure your children have too. So that's a good starting point for a 10-year-old. And then based on their maturity, obviously the conversations need to move from there as well. Also, ConnectSafely has a guide to sexting and sextortion if you have children who are older and you're ready for a more mature conversation. I think we can do that. I'm wondering if we can skip to a lightning round, Carrie.
Oh, sure. Your kid gets their first phone. When and how do you establish those smart family rules?
Ooh, good question. So I think the first thing to do is make sure before you give the phone that you've had lots of conversations about what we as a family believe about when the phone can be used and what we as a family don't think is right. And then being conscious of modeling that as the adult long before the child has the phone. So that's the first thing. When it comes to creating those rules, I think the resource you mentioned that National PTA has to have that conversation prior to the contract sounds like a phenomenal resource. And we have resources at ConnectSafely too, specifically in the parent guide section about when they have their first phone, how do you have the conversation? There's a parent's guide to smartphones that we have there. And there's a few articles that I've written too about when is the right age for a smartphone. And really what it comes down to is what Kerry and I have talked about, that every child is different. One of my children got a phone at a different age than the other child. And that's because, number one, of how, our family and life situation changed. And number two, because of the safety and family features that have become available on phones that weren't available at that time. And number three, because of the different maturity levels at different ages. So I think, being fluid and having those ongoing conversations is key. What do you think, Carrie?
I also would add that we all know that technology moves very quickly. I think that that's like a misnomer that people just say now, like, oh, technology moves really quickly. And it is very true. And so when my oldest daughter first got TikTok, I just happened, because I'm in this role, I just happened to know that there was a parent's guide that showed me how to set up all these features that truly were not very obvious to me in the app, but a simple Google search, I found them. Same thing for Google, YouTube. So there are things out there that aren't necessarily standalone devices that are part of the programs that are the apps that our kids are using, that they do have parent guides for how to set up just even security settings. And that has been a huge help to me. You can find a lot of those links on ConnectSafely and then also on pta.org/connected that will show you how do you set up those controls within the phone first. So as you're setting up your child's phone, and that really meant a lot to me because that's tends to be where I go first when I don't know something is research. I just want to research it. And I would never have known that those parent guides existed if it wasn't for being in this role and being in PTA. So I think just trusty old Google searches for parent guides on how to use an app, set up those parent controls, really will do wonders. And I think that the tech companies are making it easier for us, I think, as parents to really try to break it down to understand how to actually set them up, which I think is key to this whole process. So I encourage people to try that as well before handing the phone over.
Yeah, we're so grateful to partner with so many of those companies to help produce those family guides. But Carrie, can I just say how grateful I am that I got to partner with you tonight and with National PTA. In particular, we want to make sure we thank National PTA's sponsors, Google, YouTube, AT&T, Discord, TikTok, Norton, and of course, we're partnering with you as well, ConnectSafely. And ConnectSafely is really grateful for our sponsors, Google, Meta, TikTok, Twitch, Amazon Kids, Discord, Roblox, Snapchat, Zepeto, Friend My Girl, and National PTA. For those of you who are kicking off your Safer Internet Day content, we have a 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific webinar where there are going to be teens on a panel from My Digital Tattoo talking about Safer Internet Day from that teen perspective. So if you, after hearing from a couple of moms who happen to be internet safety experts, are interested in hearing that teen perspective, please check that out at saferinternetday.us/teens. I am excited to hear from them myself, so I will be tuning in. So thanks, everybody, and thank you, Carrie and National PTA, for partnering with Connect Safely tonight.
Thanks so much.